Before his death, Heath Ledger reportedly confessed to a close friend, "I'm trapped inside his mind, and I can't get out." The he Ledger spoke of was not a person, but a character, the Joker. In 2008, the world celebrated his terrifying performance in The Dark Knight, calling it the most unforgettable villain of modern cinema. But behind the applause was a chilling truth that Hollywood rarely dares to discuss. Ledger had locked himself in a hotel room for weeks, scribbling deranged notes in a diary, experimenting with voices, and sinking deeper into the twisted psychology of a criminal mastermind. What started as the role of a lifetime turned into a dangerous obsession. Only months later, he was found dead, leaving behind a mystery that still haunts the film industry. Was it the fame, the pressure, or the Joker himself that took Heath Ledger's life?
A skateboard, a restless spirit, and a hunger for something bigger than the small world around him. By the late 1990s, he had already begun to carve his name into Hollywood with a mix of boyish charm and fierce determination. His breakthrough in 10 Things I Hate About You turned him into a teenage idol, plastered across bedroom walls, adored for his smile and charisma. Hollywood wanted him as its new romantic lead, a safe commodity for box offices and glossy magazines. But Ledger hated it. To him, that image was a cage. He wanted danger. He wanted to disappear inside roles that frightened him. That hunger led him to roles no one expected. In Monsters Ball, he broke hearts with a vulnerable, tragic performance. In Brokeback Mountain, he dismantled stereotypes and created a portrayal so raw that it earned him an Academy Award nomination. By then, critics hailed him as an artist, not just a celebrity. But with that praise came pressure, and with pressure came shadows. Ledger confessed in interviews that fame felt suffocating, that he had trouble sleeping, that his mind rarely rested. The applause outside was deafening, but inside, he was already unraveling. When Christopher Nolan announced Heath Ledger as the Joker in The Dark Knight, outrage exploded across the internet. Fans called it a mistake, critics mocked the casting, and headlines sneered at the idea of a pretty boy taking on one of the most iconic villains in cinema. Ledger was not shaken. He was ignited. Determined to silence the world, he locked himself away. Friends later revealed that he filled notebooks with the Joker's thoughts, blending lines from comic books with his own disturbing reflections. He experimented with voices until he found the one that felt inhuman, a voice that sounded like chaos itself. The deeper he went, the stranger he became. Cast members described how Ledger carried an aura of danger on set, how his presence in full makeup could freeze a room. He laughed differently, moved differently, even breathed differently. It was not just acting, it was a transformation that unsettled those who watched him slip further into the role. Behind the painted smile and manic energy, the man himself was fading. Hollywood celebrated his bravery. Directors admired his commitment. Fans, once skeptical, began to buzz with anticipation. But for Ledger, the process was far from glorious. Nights stretched without sleep. His diary became more erratic. The Joker was no longer a character he was preparing for. It was a shadow that stalked him in silence. The stage was set. Heath Ledger was on the brink of his masterpiece, but also on the edge of something much darker. At first, Heath Ledger's journey looked like the perfect Hollywood ascent. He had the looks, the talent, and the roles that turned him into a star. By his mid-20s, he was no longer the fresh-faced boy from 10 Things I Hate About You, but a respected actor, praised for depth far beyond his years. When Brokeback Mountain arrived, critics declared him fearless. His silence, his restrained gestures, the quiet storm in his eyes, all of it proved that Ledger was not chasing fame, he was chasing truth. But truth came at a cost. The higher Ledger climbed, the more restless he became. Stardom didn't excite him. It gnawed at him. He spoke of sleepless nights, of a racing mind that would not shut off. "I can't stop my brain," he once admitted, words that sound eerily prophetic today. His friends began to notice a pattern. Heath was brilliant on set, but restless, anxious, even haunted when the camera stopped rolling. Then came the Joker. The backlash against his casting could have destroyed him, but instead it fueled his obsession. Ledger dove headfirst into the abyss. He locked himself in hotel rooms for weeks, scribbling disturbing fragments in a diary. He studied criminals, experimented with voices that slithered between comedy and menace, and tested facial tics until the Joker felt alive inside him. It was like watching someone possessed, one crew member later said. On set, the transformation was both mesmerizing and alarming. Michael Caine admitted that Ledger's intensity left him speechless, forgetting his lines in terror. Christian Bale recalled the feral unpredictability that Ledger brought to every confrontation, as if he were no longer acting, but channeling chaos itself. Nolan watched in awe, but others whispered with unease. How far was too far? Away from the set, the toll became undeniable. Ledger's insomnia worsened. He relied on sleeping pills to silence his mind, but even then, he admitted the Joker followed him into dreams. His relationship with Michelle Williams collapsed under the strain, leaving him separated from the woman he loved and the daughter he adored. Paparazzi captured his exhaustion, splashing photos across tabloids with cruel speculation. The climax of his rise and fall came in those final months. He had delivered the role of a lifetime, but he was unraveling in silence. His body was tired, his mind fractured, yet the world demanded more. Even before The Dark Knight was released, the buzz of Oscar predictions surrounded him. The expectations were suffocating. Heath smiled in interviews, joked about sleepless nights, but behind the mask, the cracks were widening. Heath Ledger had reached the summit of his career, yet the very role that promised immortality was dragging him into darkness. The rise was spectacular, the fall inevitable. And when it came, it would shock the world in a way no performance ever could.
January 22, 2008. The news broke like a thunderclap. Heath Ledger, just 28 years old, found lifeless in his Manhattan apartment. Pills scattered on the bedside table, a body still warm, but a spirit long consumed. The coroner called it accidental, a lethal cocktail of prescription drugs. But to the world, it felt like something far darker. Almost immediately, the whispers began. Did the Joker kill Heath Ledger? In the weeks before his death, Ledger himself admitted the torment he was enduring. "I'm sleeping maybe 2 hours a night," he told a reporter. "My body is exhausted, but my mind won't stop." His words were not exaggerations. Friends described him as pale, restless, consumed by the role he could not shake. And then there was the Joker diary. Pages filled with chilling sketches, anarchic scribbles, even photographs of real-life violence. To some, it looked less like preparation and more like evidence of possession. The media devoured the story. Tabloids branded him a victim of method acting, fueling the myth that the Joker had driven him insane. On television, pundits debated whether Hollywood had pushed one of its brightest stars too far. Even his co-stars fed the legend. Michael Caine admitted that Ledger's Joker was so terrifying it made him forget his lines. Gary Oldman described the performance as dangerous, untamed. Nolan himself confessed he would dive so deep it sometimes scared me. When The Dark Knight premiered, audiences understood why. Ledger's Joker was unlike anything ever seen. Chaotic, hypnotic, terrifying in its unpredictability. Every gesture, every lick of his lips, every growled word carried the weight of madness. It was brilliance, yes, but it also felt like watching a man burn from the inside out. Applause thundered in theaters, yet for many a question lingered uncomfortably. At what cost? The public reaction was overwhelming. Vigils erupted around the world. Fans wept at screenings. On internet forums, conspiracies spread like wildfire. Some swore Ledger had left clues in his diary. Others believed the role had literally consumed his soul. His family pushed back, insisting Heath was more than the Joker, that he loved life, loved his daughter Matilda, and was simply overtaken by exhaustion and medication. But the myth had already taken root. The Joker and Ledger were now forever fused, a performance and a death that could never be separated. The truth is more complicated. Ledger was not destroyed by a single role, nor entirely by Hollywood's pressure. He was undone by a storm: the insomnia, the pills, the relentless pursuit of perfection, and yes, the darkness of the Joker that clung to him until his final breath. His greatest triumph became his downfall, his immortality, forever sealed, not in life, but in tragedy.
At Hidden Fame, we believe Heath Ledger's story is not just about an actor lost too soon, but about the dangerous beauty of obsession. His Joker was not simply a role, it was an immersion so deep that audiences still debate whether he gave too much of himself to the performance. The result was unforgettable, a villain who redefined cinema forever. But behind that brilliance lies a chilling reminder of how art and life can bleed into each other with devastating consequences. Some critics argue that linking Ledger's death to the Joker is sensationalism, that his passing was the tragic result of insomnia, stress, and prescription drugs, nothing more. Others believe the character was toxic, that the psychological toll of becoming the Joker pushed him over the edge. The truth may never be clear, and perhaps that is what makes this story so haunting. Ledger's own words about sleepless nights, his disturbing diary, his haunted presence on set, these fragments form a picture of a man dancing too close to the fire. We do not see Ledger as just a victim, nor solely as a genius. We see him as both, an artist who demanded everything from himself, and a human being caught in the unforgiving machinery of fame. His dedication gave us one of cinema's greatest performances, but it also cost him peace, and perhaps his life. His legacy, however, cannot be reduced to tragedy alone. Ledger's work, from Brokeback Mountain to The Dark Knight, continues to inspire actors, filmmakers, and audiences worldwide. He showed us the power of vulnerability, the danger of obsession, and the thin line between creation and destruction. And now, we ask you, the audience, when you think of Heath Ledger, do you remember the victim, the genius, or the haunting blend of both?
There are stories that Hollywood tries to bury, yet they linger like shadows. Heath Ledger's story is one of them. His Joker was not just a performance, it was a warning, a reminder of how fragile brilliance can be. Every time his laugh echoes on screen, audiences feel the weight of knowing it was both his triumph and his curse. Heath Ledger was more than his final role. He was a son, a father, a dreamer whose restless spirit pushed him to create art that still shakes us today. But his legacy is forever intertwined with the painted smile and chaotic eyes of the Joker. That haunting performance, preserved on film, feels almost like a ghost, a presence that refuses to fade. Some truths remain hidden, some secrets unspoken. But one thing is certain, Heath Ledger gave us something immortal. His Joker is etched into the history of cinema, a role so powerful it transcends time. Yet behind the applause is silence. The silence of a life cut short, of a man who gave too much in the pursuit of greatness. And as the credits roll, we are left with an uneasy whisper. Greatness always comes at a price. Heath Ledger paid his with everything. Some stories were never meant to be known, but now you know.